The person controlling your peace may be someone you do not even respect. Think about that. You would never ask for their advice. You do not trust their judgment. You may not even like who they are. Yet one careless sentence from them can follow you home, sit beside you at dinner, and keep you awake long after midnight. You replay the conversation. You imagine a sharper response. You search for the perfect explanation that would finally force them to see who you really are. But beneath this need to be understood is a disturbing contradiction. You have made someone you dislike the judge of your identity. And until they change their verdict, part of you refuses to rest. This often begins in ordinary moments. A coworker calls your confidence arrogance. A relative describes your boundary as selfishness. A former friend tells a version of your story that makes you look cruel. Someone online studies a few words and decides they understand your entire character. You know their conclusion is incomplete. Still, your mind treats it like an emergency. At work, you continue the argument hours after the meeting has ended. Your family is speaking to you, but half of your attention remains inside the office, constructing a defense. At home, you finally refuse a responsibility you have carried for years. Instead of noticing your exhaustion, someone accuses you of changing. You remember every sacrifice they never saw. You feel an urge to explain the full history, hoping that once they understand how much you endured, they will admit that you are not selfish. But this is where the trap tightens. You are no longer explaining a decision. You are asking them to confirm that you are still a good person. When another person's agreement becomes proof of your character, your identity no longer belongs entirely to you. The modern world makes this problem worse. Every judgment can remain visible. A comment can be answered. A post can be corrected. A screenshot can be explained. The response button is always waiting, quietly suggesting that silence means weakness. So, you begin treating every misunderstanding as a fire. You defend your intentions. You clarify your words. You provide more context. But the more you respond, the more your attention becomes controlled by whoever judges you most loudly. They choose what you think about. They set the emotional temperature of your day. They decide whether you sleep peacefully. And the strangest part is that they do not even need to be present. Your mind continues the conflict for them. You imagine future confrontations. You rehearse devastating replies. You picture the exact moment they become silent and finally realize they were wrong. For a few seconds, the fantasy feels satisfying. Then your mind invents another accusation. The argument begins again. This is how a short conversation becomes an invisible prison. Your body does not always know the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. Your shoulders tighten, your breathing becomes shallow, your jaw remains tense. You may be sitting safely at home, but your nervous system is still preparing for battle. The cost appears in small losses. You struggle to focus because you are rewriting a message. You cannot enjoy an achievement because you are thinking about someone who said you did not deserve it. You become distracted around people who love you because your energy is being spent on someone committed to seeing you badly. The wrong audience begins receiving the best parts of your attention. But why does being misunderstood feel so threatening? The answer usually reaches further back than the current conflict. For many people, being understood once meant being safe. As children, we depended on adults to interpret our behavior. If they decided we were lazy, difficult, ungrateful, or overly sensitive, affection could disappear. The mood of the home could change. Punishment might follow. So we learned to explain ourselves. We monitored faces. We adjusted our behavior. We tried to become easy to interpret because being seen correctly reduced danger. Years later, the same emotional system remains active. A manager's disappointment can feel like a parent withdrawing approval. A partner's accusation can awaken the fear of abandonment. A stranger's criticism can touch an insecurity that existed long before the stranger arrived. The adult part of you says, their opinion does not matter. But a deeper part whispers, if they misunderstand you, you could lose your place. That is why the urge to defend yourself can feel so intense. It is not always vanity. Sometimes it is an old survival response wearing adult clothing. This is the deeper question hidden beneath every imaginary argument. What are you afraid will happen if they never understand you? Maybe you fear damage to your reputation. Maybe you fear rejection. Maybe you believe their version of you will become more convincing than your own. Or perhaps their accusation touches something you already doubt about yourself. If someone calls you unsuccessful while you feel secure in your direction, The comment may disappear quickly, but if you secretly fear that you are falling behind, the same words can stay with you for days. You are no longer arguing only with them. You are arguing with the uncertain part of yourself that wonders whether they might be right. This is why external validation never creates lasting peace. Even if you convince one person, another judge will eventually appear, a new colleague, a different relative, another critic. Unless you address the insecurity within, you will keep searching for outsiders to silence it. The ego offers a tempting promise. Explain yourself one more time, and they will finally understand. But that promise assumes the other person wants the truth. Sometimes they do not. Sometimes they want confirmation of a story they have already chosen. Perhaps you are the selfish sibling, the arrogant employee, the ungrateful child, the cold former partner. Everything you say is filtered through that role. Your explanation becomes manipulation. Your silence becomes guilt. Your calmness becomes arrogance. Your emotional reaction becomes evidence. There is no perfect response because the conclusion was decided before you spoke. Some people need you to remain the villain. If they admitted that your boundary was reasonable, they might have to face how much they demanded from you. If they accepted that your growth was healthy, they might have to admit that they preferred you exhausted, obedient, or dependent. Their misunderstanding protects them from uncomfortable truths about themselves. No perfectly written message can create honesty in someone who benefits from believing the wrong story. At that point, their interpretation is no longer your responsibility. You may still need to examine your actions. You may owe an apology. You may need to correct a mistake. But accountability is not the same as surrendering your identity to a hostile judge. You can clarify once without entering an endless defense. You can accept useful criticism without allowing every critic to define you. Freedom begins when you become selective about whose perception deserves your energy. Ask yourself, does this person know my full story? Have they shown fairness? Can they disagree without attacking my character? Would I trust them to advise me about my work, family, relationships, or future? If you would never trust their guidance, why are you trusting their verdict? Not everyone deserves access to your explanations. Some people must be removed from the audience. This does not mean becoming arrogant or emotionally closed. It means protecting your attention for people capable of handling it responsibly. Listen to trusted friends who can challenge you without humiliating you. Listen to the consequences of your choices. Listen to your conscience. But stop chasing people who are determined to misunderstand you. In modern life, this skill is essential. Someone will always reduce you to one moment. Someone will call your ambitions selfish. Someone will interpret your quietness as weakness or your boundaries as cruelty. Sometimes becoming the villain in another person's story simply means you stopped playing the role that benefited them. You stopped rescuing them, so they called you cold. You stopped agreeing, so they called you difficult. You became independent, and they described your growth as betrayal. Their anger may not be proof that you have done something wrong. It may be the sound of an old arrangement breaking. Real personal power is not convincing everyone that you are good. It is continuing to live by your values when someone refuses to see your goodness. It is correcting yourself when necessary without begging for a declaration of innocence. It is walking away while the other person still believes they are right. That is the freedom most people struggle to reach. The freedom to leave a conversation unfinished. The freedom to resist sending the final message. The freedom to know that someone holds the wrong idea about you and continue living anyway. Your life cannot become a permanent campaign to manage how you exist inside other people's minds. There are too many minds, too many lenses, too many stories. Some people may never apologize. They may never revise their version of events. Let the story remain where it was created, inside them. You do not have to enter it. You do not need one final speech. You do not need the perfect evidence. You do not need a fair verdict from a jury you never respected. The prison opens when you stop waiting for your captor to understand you. Return your attention to your work, to your family, to your body, to the people who meet you with honesty. Let them keep the version of you they created. Then turn toward the life that has been waiting for your full presence, and leave without explaining why.